everybody, and welcome back to my channel for this Tuesday morning, afternoon or evening across the world where you may be at. And today I'm going to be talking about autism and communication needs. This is a topic that recently came up in some training that I was doing for the local NHS with the learning disability and autism liaison nurse called Roger. He won't mind me mentioning him throughout this video. And recently I was on a Teams call with him doing a little bit of training about my autism, my journey living with autism, and this was a topic that kept coming up throughout the whole Teams call. And I thought, as it was a repeated topic and a repeated topic of interest, I thought I'd talk about it from my own autistic perspective and from being an autistic lady's perspective. So let's get into it. So recently I thought talking about communication and communication needs is essential and really important. As being on a training call with NHS professionals across my local hospital, communication is an important subject that is a running theme. I found it very interesting as an autistic woman because it still shows that this area is many different ways of how to communicate, and that all autistic people may find different areas of communication useful or difficult. There is many ways of different communication for many autistic people. As we all know, autistic people are all different. There is all different levels, communication needs, communication levels, different levels of autism, non-verbal, verbal, high functioning, low functioning, etc. And I want to talk about the ways of communicating today, which can include body language, American Sign Language, British Sign Language, Makaton, hospital communication book, PECS exchange communication system cards. You can talk about things like Braille, other things that are used on an everyday basis to train the professionals in how to communicate with people who may be autistic with learning disabilities and or autism. There is also the NHS Health Passport, which is for people with learning disabilities and or autism or disability in general. There's also the NHS Autism Passport, which I will link all the links to them down below in the video description so you guys can read more about what they are. But with regards to communication, I think one thing that I've noticed as an autistic woman who has had plenty of contact with within the NHS over the recent years is that we need time to process who we are and where we are, because when we are under stress or anxiety or duress, sometimes we're not able to always successfully communicate or understand what's required of us for a certain time period, and our communication may become non-verbal or non-responsive. So time. 2 is the environment, and the environment needs to be quieter, or if possible take us to a more quieter environment, because the environment, especially if it's a medical hospital or a GP surgery or a mental health unit or a mental health outpatient clinic or an outpatient hospital clinic, it can be quite noisy, crowded, smelly, and that can overwhelm us and lead to communication shutdown or communication withdrawal or autistic burnout and shutdown. So again, it could be about just moving us to a quiet room or quieter space to get us to communicate with you. Number 3, I'd say, is the smell and getting to know people. So number 3 is the smell of the area. So imagine if you're expecting an autistic person or a person with learning disabilities to go near an area that smells funny, or is right next to a cafe or a restaurant or a shop that has a funny smell. Again, that can really oversensitize us and lead us to have really bad sensory overwhelm and high anxiety periods to the point that we shut down or withdraw all forms of communication. Also, I would say that make sure that we have people with us. So a communication need is parents, carers, friends or advocates. These are the people that will help us successfully communicate with you, because people don't always realise that people with autism or learning disabilities or mental health issues will need some form of carer, friend, professional with them whilst they're accessing hospital treatment or outpatient treatment or mental health inpatient treatment or mental health outpatient treatment and community treatment. So it may be best to try and interact with them on a basis where they have friends or family available to them to help lower their anxiety, lower their sensory overwhelm, because again, going to a new place like a hospital or clinic or outpatient clinic or inpatient services may overwhelm them and lead them to have severe behavioural challenges. So it could be things like having high anxiety, which may come across as psychotic behaviour, or may come across as being non-cooperative or being violent, which isn't the case half the time. It's a case that they are overwhelmed and don't know what to do, or don't know how to expect to behave in that environment. They are going to their last resort into shutdown mode. So yeah. Also, I would say that each person that you deal with is different. So again, that is the same for autistic people, people with learning disabilities, people with mental health issues. It can be the same for anyone who is legally disabled or otherwise. So make sure that you treat each person differently and each person kindly to what their condition or medical condition may be at that time, because each person might respond to you differently. Also, I would say is one of the most important things is to introduce yourself. So if you are meeting someone for the first time who comes across or lets you know they have a learning disability or autism or mental health or physical health condition for that matter as well, I think it's important that you get to know them, build up that professional rapport with them, understand where they've come from, why they may be highly anxious, they may be sick, they may be physically having the shakes or high anxiety, they may look away and not talking to you, they may look around like this, they may look down, they may look at the mouth to lip read, or they may look at the nose so they show that they're looking at you. So if they don't look at you, so if they don't stare at you, don't assume they're being rude, but they may look at the mouth to lip read what you're saying, or they may look at the nose to show they are showing some form of interest. So that may be another way. Make sure that you communicate with them in their way that helps them to self-regulate and to self-soothe and to be calm. Also, there is things such as Makaton, like I said earlier, sign language, and easy read accessible material. So again, make sure that if the person is known to have a disability, if it is flagged on the system, to provide that easy read content for them so that they then can better communicate with you and keep it open. So again, don't use open-ended questions, use closed questions. So you can say, oh, okay, are you feeling okay? Yes, no. Are you in pain? Yes, no. Can you tell me where you are? Yes, no. Keep it so it's yes, no answers, very blank, very to the truth, and very direct to the point. So things like that may help as well. Dealing with sensory overwhelm, again, that is something that I've found can be a real big issue within the NHS or outpatient appointments. If you are sensory overwhelmed and you don't cope well within a busy environment, it can be very, very hard to get cooperation on communication going and that rapport going, because it's something that takes time to get to know the patient. Obviously, you only have a set time to be with them, and if they're in for a few days or even a couple of hours or a day, again, that professional rapport is hard to build up and talk about, because you have to get to know them and trust that they are telling you the truth when it comes to their treatment. Again, this is why you go to their carers or friends or professionals if they are with them, and get them to talk on behalf of them if they are unable to, or if they can't, or if they choose not to cooperate because they're nervous or they're unable to talk due to trauma, or they may be too much in pain or scared to talk to you because they think you're going to judge them or shout at them or something like that. So again, you have to be really careful when it comes to speaking to them. Another thing that I'm going to say is don't give them too much information at one time. So again, keep it brief, keep it short, keep it to the point, keep it relevant, keep it onto the subject that they want to talk about. So again, if they do have a special interest and they start talking about, say, I don't know, for boys, football, soccer, wrestling, snooker, something that is science, something that is a lifelong interest to them, get talking about it. Tell them, ask them more questions about it, get to know them, be like, oh yeah, so what do you do, like, why do you like this? And like for girls, it can be makeup, movies, celebrities, it can be politics, it could be health, it could be clothing, it could be anything that is the everyday norm that girls, women follow. Like for me, I'm into politics, I'm into music, I like creative writing, so my poetry, my radio work, my community work, so anything that is of my interest to get me to interact with you better and to take part in that discussion will basically be the very helpful way of interacting with me and getting me to cooperate when it comes to being in a hospital, outpatient, inpatient unit, community mental health facilities, We've got to be careful when it comes to labels and discrimination. Again, this is something that has been brought up to my attention multiple times. We have to be very careful when using labels like saying high functioning, low functioning, mental health, anxiety, because obviously I'm not a medic, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, but this is something from my own experience that I've had to deal with over the years since being diagnosed with autism nearly 10 years ago. And I've experienced this on multiple occasions. I've had panic attacks, anxiety attacks, when I've been in hospital for my carpal tunnel, things that I've had over the years that I'm like, oh, that wasn't great, but this is how we can work together to improve it. This is how we can make it better for both the professional and myself, and to make it better for my parents even, because again, if you do have your parents with you or a friend, family, then make sure you explain everything that's going on with the professional and with yourself. And also, like, if you're getting admitted for an operation as well, this is another thing I want to add under communication. If you're getting admitted for a procedure, say like carpal tunnel, or if you're having surgery for, say, a broken foot, broken arm, broken wrist, something that is an everyday basic operation procedure, make sure that you're able to tell them about your pain needs, your physical needs, your mental needs. Make sure that they know everything about you before they admit you. Make sure that, if possible, again, for a person with a learning disability, especially in autism, make sure you can get them into a quiet side room or not on a bay area, because again, that will cause physical overwhelm, sensory shutdown, and avoidance in communication and cooperation when it comes to speaking to people like myself. Also, I want to talk about how to respect each person, because again, when you are in that mental health mind or in that mental health space and you're having to be with professionals you don't know, who you may not trust, you may feel frightened, there is a way to speak up for yourself. There's always ways to cooperate with them and them to understand you. So I feel that this is a topic that is going to be an ongoing thing, and I think it's very important to voice my opinion as an autistic woman, as someone who has regularly communicate with NHS staff, which, if you guys who are in the States, Canada, across the world, who watch this channel, the NHS is the National Health Service, which I will link more information down below in the video description. I hope you've enjoyed hearing my take on this, and I will see you for the next one.